Similar to the last forum, we're going to have a timer here. When 30 seconds come up, you'll hear the start, the beep. So just kind of wrap it up from that perspective. We're going to give anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes for each question, and we'll start with a round robin style, so we'll mix it through. So I'm going to start at the other end with Michael, and I'm going to pass the microphone through. We only have one microphone, so it's going to make it a little cumbersome. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to stand because it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. My name is Michael Bayonne. I'm running for Board of Ed. I know I don't have much time, but briefly, I ran last year unsuccessfully, but this year I think that my message is a lot clearer. And that message is that I bring a practical advantage to the table. That is, I'm an attorney. There are other attorneys on this panel, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that. But I'm an attorney that represents boards of ed and other school districts. So what I do for a living is represent school districts and boards. So again, with that background, I think I would make an immediate contribution to getting the ground that would have an impact on Stanford's school systems.
I'm looking at you.
At this point, my name is either Jackie Wade or Julia Heffman. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, the NAACP and PT Council, for holding this forum and for holding it on the West Side. I really appreciate it. So my name is Julia Wade. I am running for re-election to the Board of Education. I have served for 3 years, but I was appointed in January, so actually my service has been slightly longer than 3 years. I work for DOMAS, and I think that many of you know the programs that DOMAS operates. So not only is my avocation education, but my profession is education as well. I am here to represent all students, regardless of the background that they come from, their abilities, the gifts, the talents. I believe that once you are elected, we certainly run on a platform, and I'm running as a Democrat, but once we're elected, we are meant to put our politics aside. We don't represent any special constituency. We look at what's needed for all of the children and then deliver those services, monitor those services that deliver the highest quality education for all kids. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Karen Murphy, and I'm also running for the Board of Ed. I'm running because I believe my skill set that I bring to the board will increase, be very valuable to the board. I am an attorney and I'm an actuary. More than 50% of the decision-making by the, this is time, more than, is there something wrong? More than 50% of the decision-making by the Board of Ed is due to budget-related or personnel-related. As an attorney and as an actuary and someone who has an extensive background in financial matters, I will be able to address those issues most professionally. Also, as I think most of you know, most of the policy issues that the board has to address are state mandated. As an attorney, I will be able to review the judicial decisions and the legislation and look at possible other alternatives or solutions when we're developing policies at the board level. I am also a mathematician. And looking when the superintendent makes recommendations to the board, I will be able to evaluate those in a very professional manner. And finally, I am independent. And as an independent, I will be able to hold the superintendent, my other board members, city officials, and other accountable. Mr. Lieutenant, all right, I thank you.
evening. I also want to thank the PT Council and the NAACP for having us here. I was looking for the birthday cake because I was thinking as a child how many birthday parties I came to here in this facility, and it's always fun to be here. It stirs up a lot of great memories. I grew up in Stamford, as you might imagine from what I just said. I've lived here my whole life, other than for a brief stint in college and law school. I've been practicing law here in Stamford for 20 years. I'm the only person sitting up here, the only person running with children in public schools. I have 2 kids in public school, one at West Hill, one at Clunin. My wife teaches in the Stamford Public Schools. My mother, who's here, thankfully, taught almost 40 years down in Port Ridge as well. The other item I wanted to point out about myself, which is a relatively new development that I'm really excited about, is that I received 81% of the vote of the Stamford Teachers Union, the Stamford Education Association. Out of all of the candidates for both Board of Finance and Board of Ed, I received the highest percentage of votes, and I'm very proud of that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is June Porter. I am a Stamford resident. I was born and raised here. I am a product of the Stamford Public Schools, a graduate of the Guam High School, and I taught in the Stamford Public Schools for 38 years. My main reason for being here is just I care about the children. I've cared about them for 38 years, and this is another chance to give back to them.
Thank you. I want to take this opportunity to thank PT Council and the NAACP for hosting us this evening, and to Eugene Campbell and the Yerwood Center for allowing us to be here. Jackie Heftman. I'm running for re-election for the Board of Education, and what I bring to the board is experience. In my first year on the board, I was fiscal chair. Second year, I was president of the board. This year, I'm on the policy committee and labor, and was just appointed again to the fiscal committee. I've helped negotiate every contract with every labor union that the Board of Education has. I have raised my children here in Stamford with my husband, Alan. Both of our sons graduated from the Stamford Public Schools, went on to good colleges, and now are successful out there in the world and no longer depend on mom and dad for any financial support, which is always wonderful. And I look forward to your questions.
Thank you. We're going to start with Julia next. We're going to start the next question. You'll be given 2 minutes. And the question is, what 3 areas do you feel the most need of improvement in our schools? And what would you do to fix them?
Before I get started, I just wanted to make a mention. My son, Andy Wade, is in the audience. Product of Stamford Public Schools, and it's just great to have, and a recent graduate from college who's looking for work, so great. So the areas that I think need our attention most are, one is our K through 3 literacy program. We all know that research shows that if you can bring a child along to have matching vocabulary with some of the more capable students that are in our public schools, and if we can keep that initiative alive through elementary school, middle school, and high school, that their chances for successful post-secondary education and beyond are much improved. I also think we need to concentrate mightily on our high schools. We have relatively flat CAP scores, and I would like to see improved attention and direction and dollars placed on our high schools. And thirdly, I am interested in looking to see if there's a way that we can introduce world language in the elementary school, because again, research shows that children learn language effortlessly when they are in elementary school, and it becomes a much more challenging skill as they mature. Thank you.
I believe the key issues are 3 key issues would be the selection of the superintendent is a key issue. This will probably be, I'll address that question later when it comes to us. The next area, major concern, is significant improvement in reading at all grade levels. We cannot have 50% of our students reading below goal. Our high school students need immediate attention. I believe we should move the graduation requirements that come into play in year 2018 earlier. We have to address our high school students. They cannot be leaving and entering this world and not being able to read. Another area of concern, I think is a real concern this year, is going to be the budget. You have to realize that we are going through a revow. I believe the revow is going to increase taxes, no just to residents, because the transfer to the residents is probably 8 to 10%. I think you have to be concerned with the mayor. He's pushing that, I call a silly fireman's plan that will increase taxes significantly. They are trying to accelerate the funding for what I call our legacy benefit plans. And, the superintendent indicated that we need 4% increase for the schools just to maintain, our current levels. So I think the budget is a very key issue that has to be addressed in a very professional manner, and obviously the reading is the most important issue.
Sorry, that was the question about instruction. Can you just repeat again?
Yeah.
I don't want to.
What 3 areas do you feel are the most need of improvement in our schools? And what would you do to fix them?
It's always hard to come up with 3 areas of anything, but as I was listening, I jotted down 3 things. I think that kindergarten readiness, early childhood issues, getting kids ready for kindergarten will, as I think Julia said, will start them on the right path to success from day one. And whatever this board can do to advocate or to fund more early childhood education and interventions immediately in kindergarten to get these kids moving, all kids moving earlier, is going to be a big help. Second thing, I don't know if it falls in the top 3, but it comes to mind because my kids are in the schools and I see what goes on, is technology. Some schools have it, some schools don't. We need technology in the classroom. That goes with money in the classroom, which some of you who have been here have heard me talk about. I'd like to see Promethean boards everywhere, at every school, tomorrow. Not 5 years from now, tomorrow. It makes a dramatic difference in the way teachers can teach. The last thing, I agree with Julia as well, is the world language. It's unfortunate. Other countries, they learn early. They start learning early. We need to find a way, find the money to get it into the elementary schools. Under the current middle school reform or transformation, if your child is in the CP group, you don't get world language. So now we have a whole group of kids, huge swaths of kids not getting world language till high school. That's a crime. More world language. Thank you.
I believe the first thing is that heterogeneous grouping in the middle school, it seems to have caused a big disturbance, and I think it's very important to continue in the direction that we are headed. The school system has set a foundation, and it's the first time in the 38 years that I have been teaching that I've ever noticed that we've actually started at the bottom and started to work slowly and work our way up. They're teaching the skills that are related to the core standards, which are very important, and they're trying to get proficiency there, and that should help their reading scores. I also feel that preschool is very, very important, and I think right now we're playing catch up with our children, and we need to start everyone so they start in an equal area, and to do that you're going to need preschool. But you need it to be free and funded some other way so that you can get all of the children that you need to attend that program. And I think it probably has to be from the businesses. The GE grant, if we didn't have that grant, none of these things could have been taking place in the school system because the taxpayers could not afford this type of education. That's my belief. And the budget, we need help from the businesses. That's very, very important.
I think the number one area that we need to remain focused on is closing the achievement gap. Whether we begin that in pre-K or whether we talk about high school, it's across the spectrum. We need to stay focused. We need to continue on the path that we're on. We are beginning to see results. We're actually moving the dial in Stanford for the first time. So I would as a board member, I would be certainly supportive of continuing the efforts that we've started. Another area that I think we need to look at is technology. Several other people have mentioned it. Our magnet schools, for the most part, have state-of-the-art technology. Our traditional schools are woefully inadequate in the technology area. So as a board member, I would be looking to advocate before the planning board, before the Board of Finance, in order to get the dollars that we need for technology. I would also like us to focus on our music and art programs, but specifically at this time music. I was at a performance last Friday night of a program called Night Music at Stanford High School, where there were bands that came from all over the state of Connecticut, plus several from Westchester County. And Stanford High School has such a small number of participants in the band that they couldn't even qualify for the competition. We need to make sure that the feeder program from elementary to middle school is adequate so that when they get to high school, there's a band that represents the effort that the students are putting forward. But I don't disagree with any of the other areas that people mentioned.
Thank you. One item that comes to mind is the selection of our new superintendent. I was not in favor of Mr. Starr when he left. It was not something that troubled me. Because I recall when he advertised that he went on another interview, and I told me he had no commitment. I look forward to having someone come in and sit across the table from me so I can ask him, what is your plan to improve this school right now? It'll be 2 years. You've got a 2-year contract with no bells and whistles. You have 2 years to fix this. Because I'm accountable to the people, and if I'm going to get fired, so are you. So that's first. Number 2, the budget. We don't have a lot of money. And I'm going to tell you now things that most people won't tell you. Where does the money come from? Concessions from unions. I'm going to ask teachers. I put it all on teachers' backs, but salaries are the biggest line on the budget. Danbury today gave a 1% pay increase for 2 years, and the teachers had to increase their premium cost share, but they're paying more. I represent a large urban school district where we had no money, we had so little money that the state came down, took over the board, and fired the superintendent. I don't want that to happen. And third, what I'd like to see is the improvement of neighborhood schools.
Next question is, how do you think the current board is doing, and what are their strengths and weaknesses?
Thank you. I think the current board has missed the mark on a few items. First, when it comes to the middle school reform, before they did the middle school reform, what was in place in the middle schools for the last 40 years, that rigid system for tracking, in my opinion, was discriminatory and unacceptable. So to have that rigid tracking in place for almost the last 40 years was wrong. Then they put in a new middle school reform, which I don't think was properly analyzed given our students and the wide difference in abilities. And secondly, they promised enrichment courses, and which did not occur. So I think the middle school reform should be revisited. I also feel as though that one other point I'd like to make is that they didn't follow the money. Our schools are in need of $175 million of repair. And in the last 4 years, our city raised $173 million. Our schools got only less than $13.5 million. That should not happen. We have 20 schools to maintain, and I don't believe we're maintaining properly. Thank you.
I don't want to be critical of specific people, so really I'm just looking at sort of what are opportunities for me. What are opportunities where we can do some things. So the first is on budget. I think we need to change the debate about the budget. This is a 1-minute question. We need to change the debate about the budget, and we need to get away from, maybe we can only stomach 1% or 2%. We need to find out what it's going to take to educate our kids and put the technology and the best teachers in the classroom, and then go for that amount of money. We also need to figure out a way to advocate to the state to get our fair share of ECS money. You've heard it from me before. Sterling, Connecticut, which I have never heard of, gets $5,083 per kid. Stanford gets $508 per kid. We need to advocate on that. We need to find a way to advocate. Second, we got to do more with technology. And the third thematic question that I want to see happen on the new board is the board does not work for the superintendent. The superintendent works for the board. And the board's job is to implement policies and continue to ask hard questions and get information from the administration and provide feedback and make changes where necessary. It's not to work for the superintendent. Thank you.
I feel there's a little bit of tension on the board, and I think part of that is caused because of the heterogeneous grouping in the middle schools. That seemed to be a very hot issue. I kind of think that I had the same feeling at first. I was not really for tracking because it destroys a child's self-esteem, it destroys their motivation, and in turn, there's no way they're ever going to reach their full potential. So I have not liked that ever since I started teaching, including when I attended the Stanford Public Schools. So I was exposed to that, and that happened to me in a grouping situation, and I've carried that with me the rest of my life. But I really think it's because people do not understand what really has happened in the education in the school system, that they're teaching the skills that are related to these core standards, which should be the things to help them with reading and science and math. So it sounds like very good start that we have going right now, and I'd like to see it continue.
Repeat the question, please.
How do you think the current board is doing, and what are the strengths and weaknesses you see?
So I take it to understand that you're talking about the 9-member board, not the large Board of Education bureaucracy. Okay, thank you. I think that one of the strengths that the Board of Education currently has is our ability to articulate and get our budgets through the 2 boards that have approval over our budgets. I think it's something that we do really well. I think as evidence of that, you can look at the Board of Finance, and over the past 2 years, there were no cuts that were made to the Board of Education budget. They understand our budget because the budget's transparent. They get answers to all the questions, no matter how many. And it has improved the relationship tremendously between the 3 boards. I think that the weaknesses that this board exhibits are because there are some members who don't understand the role of a Board of Education member. And I also think that we don't talk to each other enough. We haven't met in a retreat in over a year. And retreats are a time that we can get together off-site to talk about the work that we need to do, to set goals for ourselves, and to set goals for the superintendent. So I think that there is some improvement that could be made here.
Thank you. The current board consists of friends and colleagues of mine. I don't necessarily have major criticisms of could say that, I think they're afraid to offend perhaps some of the teachers or the teachers' unions. And I guess to go back to what I said, I don't want to make it seem like I want to take everything from the teachers. I know they are the backbone of everything that happens at the school. I just should have the practical experience of knowing that we have budget crises as we do now. That when it comes to asking for concessions to get the budget right, I'm going to have to ask the teachers for wage freezes. And believe me, I have a right to do it. And I'd ask other unions to do the same. And I won't be shy. I won't be afraid. When there's people who can't even get jobs, if I ask them for a wage freeze, we believe they're going to get it. Because in this economic times, that's what's going to happen. But again, that would just be my only criticism, that I see that there's not a lot of honest talk towards what's really going to happen with this budget crisis.
The areas that I think that we have done well is in our transparent budget presentations. I think that the contracts that we have negotiated have set the standard for the city, and we have been fair but aggressive. I think that we have overseen the closing of the achievement gap, and while I give most of our credit to our superintendents, interim and previous, and certainly to our teachers in the classroom, we have been at the helm while we have seen this reduction. We are not a collegial board. We are not a collaborative board. There is a lot of angst and anxiety. I was lucky enough to serve on a board where we all were rowing in the same direction in the early days, and that is no longer the case. And I miss that, and I think we would be a lot more effective if, in fact, we kept our eye on the ball, which is continuing to close the achievement gap.
Excuse me, can I respond? Did you started, right? Okay, now we're going to go.
Okay. What do you think about the recent mandate to have school governance councils in 11 of our schools? How do you see increasing parent involvement in our schools, and will you support recommendations to these councils? If so, how? That's a long question. I can repeat it if you need it. Okay. What do you think? What do you think about the recent mandate to have school governance councils in 11 of our schools? How do you see increasing parent involvement? The councils increasing parent involvement, and will you support recommendations from these councils? You have 2 minutes.
Seems to happen to me every time. The School Governance Council is a new concept by state law. We don't know how it's going to work out in terms of thematically and also just operationally how it'll work out. But I like, look, anytime parents can participate more, that's good. Anytime we can invite parents to participate more, that's good. Anytime we can have an open door policy and let our parents into our buildings to see what's going on, that's good. So I'm all for the notion of parents having a more direct role in their child's education. In terms of parent involvement in the specifics of what kids are being taught, how they're being taught, I think it's important to have the parent perspective, although the parents' councils, nor do the parents run the schools. The Board of Ed, through the administration, through its faculty, and through all of the educators, run the schools. The parent councils are there to provide a parent's perspective and give input on all kinds of topics, and I think that's great. One of the great experiences you can have as a parent is to get yourself into the building. I was just at West Hill last week teaching a class in advance of the Connecticut Appellate Court coming to West Hill. It was exciting. I've been in the buildings teaching mock trial to kids. It's a lot of fun. So the more the parents are in the schools and participating and have something constructive to add, the better we're all going to be. And the schools should do whatever they can to bring that in, whether it's providing transportation or translation or anything to make it easy and comfortable and inviting for everybody who lives in Stamford to come in.
I am in favor of the councils. I think that's a good idea. I think it's very important to increase parent involvement, and I think if you are aware of certain things ahead of time before they take place, for instance, like the heterogeneous grouping in the middle school, and you understand the components and how it works, I think many of you would probably not have a negative attitude about it. So I think this is an important thing. I think we also need to work as a community, and I think it also shows your children that you are interested in what they are doing, and that's a very important thing. We need parents, we need community, we need teachers, we need everyone to work for the children.
I'm also 100% supportive of the school governance councils. I think that it is absolutely best practice. I would be looking, eventually hoping that we would expand it to all the schools, not just the 11 that by law have to have them at this point. I'm sorry that the state made it another unfunded mandate because it does take a lot of staff time. So to make sure that it is all functioning properly and that the elections are all proceeding the way they should. It does cost money that the state is not helping us fund. So it is going to have a budget impact. I would be certainly looking at the recommendations. I think that by law we have to look at the recommendations that come from the school governance councils, but I certainly wouldn't want to be hypothetically saying how I would think one way or another. I'd have to see the recommendations first, but I'm sure that all the parents that are in this room this evening, since you're here, you're actively involved in your children's education, and we all know that that makes a tremendous difference. As a parent, I myself was involved as a PTO president and as PT Council president, and we all know how important it is whether we help our own children or all the other children who don't have support in school. So I'm fully supportive of the councils.
Parent involvement to me is essential. Frank, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for my mother and father who wholly embraced education with everything they had. And I think they combined, they probably worked 200 hours a week to make sure that I had the best of everything. And to make sure I went to the best schools and got that education. I remember when I was 8 years old in the kitchen, my mom was washing the dishes and she said to me, you know, you're going to go to Yale. I was 8. I was, what the yeah. I disappointed her. I didn't go to Yale. But she was at 8 years old telling me that that's where I was going to be. Ivy League schools. That's where my mind was geared. So embracing education is huge. My sister's in the crowd, she's laughing at me. She knows it's true. I don't know what school mom told you to go to, but I had to go to Yale. Was it harder for you? You failed to, but anyways. But I think she still loves us. But to the point is, without parent involvement at an early age, we're done. School can't do everything. You just can't. It's got to start with a really small, and it's got to keep going until the person or the student, like myself or my mom or student, understand why my parents were so hard and pushing me forward to embrace education as I have done, and I continue to do today.
I'm thrilled that we are going to institute 11 school governance councils in our schools and consider this sort of a pilot program for us. It's going to be a lot of work, not only for the educators, but also for the parents, because there's a lot of training that needs to be done in advance in order to be an effective advisory body. I just wanted to read one of the bullets that school governance councils are responsible for. Work with school administrators in developing and approving a school parent compact for parents, legal guardians, and students that outlines the school's goals and academic focus, identifying ways that parents and school personnel can build a partnership to improve student learning. I just think that that's a terrific mission, and it is an entirely different and brand new mission from what PTOs or PTAs have traditionally been assigned. So for us as a board, our charge is to make sure that we provide the proper supports to make sure that the parents are trained in understanding what their role is and being able to read the data and being able to provide the advice, because otherwise the parents won't be prepared to come into this compact with the school administrators and to work effectively to improve student learning for all. So I look forward to what this new year brings, to learning from our mistakes, to fine-tuning the process, and then to rolling it out to additional schools.
Thank you. Yes, I am very much in favor of these school councils. It's where I think we should focus is on each school. There should be, the superintendent should set high goals and then challenge the superintendent and the teachers to achieve those goals and give them the resources. So I like the student councils that are at each school, hopefully it'll be at all schools someday. It gives us school-based management, and that's what I like. Each schools are different, and so we will focus on the children in that school. I would also like to see some business leaders added to those councils. I think they would help in the process to make sure everything is working and proceeding, and the process at each school is working. So I would like to see some business leaders in those schools, and also might add, how the teachers are working, what compensation, what benefits, what everything should be at those schools. So that would be the only change I would make on those governance councils. Thank you.